The array of live-action films based on animated series can be a mixed bag. However, there are still those diamonds in the rough that manage to succeed as great films, and that is the subject of today's video, as maybe my personal favorite live-action cartoon adaptation is Speed Racer. When I first saw this film on its opening week, I was mesmerized by it, even if others were more sniffy towards it. However, in recent years, it has slowly gained more of a cult following and a wider appreciation I'm glad to contribute to. What the Wachowskis did with Speed Racer was create what is essentially the perfect Mario Kart 64 adaptation. This is almost like a lesson in how to properly adapt a video game to the screen, even if it's not actually based on a game. The first thing that one has to point out is the imagination of the visuals. The original Speed Racer animated series was fairly limited by its budget, and I get the feeling the younger Wachowskis were filling in the gaps when they watched the show, and this is what their childhood minds came up with. It's a kaleidoscope of colors bursting with energy, and they don't just rely on the same images again and again. Returning to the childhood analogy, this feels like the product of them sprawled on the carpet floor and drawing imaginary racetracks. From the scorching desert to the casino world, each race feels like a track from Mario Kart, right down to the cars and their weapons. The energy is all over these sequences, which are directed with the right amount of whiz-bang awesomeness, and yet they never become disorienting and dizzying. However, the reason the race scenes are exciting comes down not to the special effects, but rather the characters. By focusing on the day-to-day life of the racer family, the audience is able to connect to them and see them as a loving family unit. They are easily identifiable, and yet don't become one-dimensional stereotypes. Even Spritle and Chim Chim, the comic relief, work as essential parts of this family and play a role in guiding the story forward at some points. They also help in us becoming accepting of this colorful and frantic world pretty easily, and they fit in naturally with the cartoonish environment. Christina Ricci and John Goodman are especially perfect casting to play real-life cartoon characters. I also think Susan Sarandon deserves more credit for how she plays Mom Racer, displaying the right motherly quality in the way she supports Speed and his racing antics. Tangled through all of this is the storyline with Rex Racer and how he drives Speed to do his best on the track. It's actually genuinely touching, especially in the movie's first race, where Rex's car is timed against Speed's. One of the criticisms leveled at the film are the frequent flashbacks featured throughout the movie, but I think these play pivotal roles in establishing the world and the character motivations. By peppering these through the film in the right spots, they flow easily with the present-day scenes, and we're not forced to be drowned in constant exposition, and it keeps things engaging. For a film that's a little over 2 hours and 10 minutes, I think Speed Racer is extremely well-paced, and the Wachowskis do not waste a second of screen time. In between the flashing lights and family drama, I'm also intrigued by the underbelly of the sports world established in this film. The Wachowskis clearly put a lot of thought into the corruption of the racing organizations, and Rolton becomes a legitimately threatening villain. Almost like a cross between Donald Trump and Bernie Ecclestone, Rolton is sort of like the big brass businessman hiding behind money and feeling like he runs the entire world and that he has every employee under his watch. That makes him seem more real than your typical over-the-top businessman villain. While we know there's something sinister hidden underneath in his early scenes, the moments where he shows his true colors are excellently portrayed by Roger Allen, who somehow manages to chew the scenery without overdoing it. That makes Speed's initial confusion about the truth behind his favorite sport feel especially legitimate. When Speed Racer goes really humorous, it works, with a lot of the comedic bits being really funny. I wonder if this came off as a surprise to viewers accustomed to the darkness and seriousness of The Matrix. However, Lilly and Lana Wachowski do have a strong sense of humor, as displayed here, and even parts of their similarly campy Jupiter Ascending. One scene involving a ninja is a particular comic highlight, and also features maybe John Goodman's best scene in the entire film. All of these elements are what combine to make the race sequences really special. It's not just the stunning visuals and bright colors and Michael Giacchino's incredibly underrated score, but everything that the Wachowskis have been building up to. Even though I've seen Speed Racer many times, they still continue to be extremely tense, especially the final scene. There's one part I will not dare spoil for you, when my heart really speeds up in anticipation for what happens. Speed Racer is one of those films I never expected to be such an emotional experience, but Lilly and Lana Wachowski managed to craft one of the best racing films, and certainly show not only how to properly adapt an animated series into a live-action film, but also have here a really strong template on how to make a good video game movie. It's an imaginative, exciting film, and one I certainly find myself going back to on occasion. If you're one of many who missed Speed Racer on its original release, and you're curious why it's slowly growing a cult following, I think you should check it out. Whether you like or dislike it, I think you'll still find it a unique little film wrapped in an effects-filled blockbuster package. See you next time.